On today's show, author Joe McQuillen joins me to talk about the loss of his beloved son, Christopher. Losing his son to a drowning accident in 2016, Joe seeks the help of mediums to help him connect with his son, as he had discovered years before that he could connect with the other side, getting a message from his father from a medium. He's here to tell us all about how not only did he connect with his son, but with the help of his son, he wrote this book, We Are Not Done Yet, My Lessons from the Other Side. Today on Healing from Within with Tony Valen, author Joe McQuillen. Hi, I'm Tony Valen. Welcome.
From within.
So I want to welcome to the show Joe McQuillen. He is the author of We're Not Done Yet, Pop, My Lessons from the Other Side. So this is a very interesting book, and it's one that actually touches me in my heart because that's the way my journey began. But Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you having me on to tell our story.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. So I'm going to ask you the question that, in case someone doesn't know about you or your book, where and how did your journey begin?
Well, this is actually the second book, and the first one was my search for Christopher on the other side, and this is a follow-up. And I'm working on a third book, and as you can tell by the title, "We're Not Done Yet, Pop." I thought it was one and done, and our story was told, and then Christopher informed me that we weren't, and so I just followed breadcrumbs. So, the story started. My son was home for Christmas in December of 2015, and so the last weekend, he was a college boy, 21 years old, and he was working at getting a special ed degree and having a nice time. And he was home for Christmas. We had a great Christmas, thank God, a phenomenal Christmas. And the last weekend before they were all going back on January 2nd, a dozen of them were going up to one of their friends' beach houses about an hour north in Wisconsin, Lake Beulah, and kick up their heels a little bit and raise a little heck and come home the next day. And they were all spending the night. And Sally and I were kind of relieved. Last weekend was in this bucolic setting and not in this city in an urban setting. And we thought it was less trouble. And the next morning I was setting up, getting ready to watch I grew up in Buffalo, and my boys are big Buffalo Bills fans. So we were going to watch the Bills game, and Chris was supposed to be home before kickoff. And as we were prepping, I texted, "Where are you, buddy? What's going on?" And I got a text from his friend, the young man whose parents owned the lake house, that said, "Mr. McHugh, Chris and 3 friends are missing." So I threw on a jacket and grabbed my Labrador, threw her in the car, and started heading up north. And halfway, and Tony, I gotta be honest, I believed I was going to find him in a boathouse with a co-ed or somebody else's house sleeping on a couch. I had no indication that the next phone call was going to be the one that said that it was no longer a search but a recovery, that all 4 boys who had gone out had drowned. So what happened at 3:00 in the morning, 3:47 to be exact, because Chris told me that later on. He and 3 friends walked by a boathouse, jumped in a canoe with unlaced Timberland boots and layered clothing and a snoot full of alcohol, and partially frozen lake, and paddled out, and all 4 of them drowned that day. So I got the call and that said he was gone. And I tell you what helped with the search, Tony, was that 16 years before, on a lark, some kind of lark, because I wasn't a metaphysical guy, I went and saw the medium, and the meeting was rather mundane, and I wasn't really too connected to it. And And right before it ended, she said, by the way, your dad's here. And he's showing me a caboose and he's telling me railroad. Now, my dad spent 40 years on the railroad. I'm the youngest of 10 kids. Every one of the boys worked on the railroad during school. And we were a railroad family. Back home, I'm in Florida at my sister's, who's also on the other side with Chris. And there's on my bookcase is a railroad lantern from the Canadian Pacific Railroad caboose. And we were a railroad family. So that stuck with me. It's like, no miracle answers, no answers to the universe, but he just told me he was there. So I put that kind of in a mental bookcase in a file cabinet. And 16 years later, when I'm driving up to Lake Beulah, I got the thought that, wait a minute, if my dad, if Iron Joe is somewhere, then he can connect with me. Then there's no doubt my kid's with him, my son, my boy is with him. I just got to figure it out. And that started my search, Tom.
Wow. Yeah. And what does the rest of your family think of the journey? And, what was, I mean, I can imagine the grief of losing your child and losing someone so close. I mean, your wife, was she on board from the get-go, or what happened?
Yeah, she had a spiritual bent to her. She's a therapist, brilliant woman, and she's actually coming out with her first book pretty soon about raising a wonderful and yet, difficult child, and she once said it was like trying to hold water in your hands to try to keep him around. And so she had a spiritual bent, and my kids, have kind of signed on. My daughter is a little more reticent. She's still 6 years later angry at Chris. She said to me, and she's 25, and she said to me, we were finally getting close, and he left me. So she hasn't been able to get past that hurt. William, her little brother, who's 21, he's at Boulder, and he signed on completely. Gone to see mediums, brought friends to mediums, wrote a chapter in the second book for me that was, and it's brilliant. It's called The First Are the Worst. And he's on completely. So Sally actually, went and saw Rebecca Rosen and flew to Denver. And a friend of hers had arranged a small group meeting with Rebecca Rosen. And literally, 2 months after Christopher transitioned. So Sally's completely on board, 100%. And she wants to know what he said. And he's around her a lot. But I'm given this gift of being able to connect with him through spirit writing, similar to channel writing, but I know what I'm writing, and it comes through. And so she's always curious, as painful as the subject always is, when he said something or passed a message on, she's completely on board and knows. I mean, I got to be honest with you, anybody who suffered a loss, I couldn't imagine what life would be like without the knowing that we're going to see them again and that they can connect with us. I've been given this amazing gift of connecting, but I think the deal is with the universe, with God, the source, is that I have to give it away to keep it, and I think because look at me, I have a brush cut and kind of a bent nose. I don't look like a guy that would normally be talking to you while I have a candle and I've got sage and crystals, but I am that guy. I'm a different guy than I was prior to January 3rd, 2016. So I pity anybody who thinks that it's all over when those kids are gone, when their children have left this world, this room, this side.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions to you. Is that what type of person were you, and how did you think of all this medium stuff? I know you talked about connecting with your dad or someone telling you about your dad, but what did you think of that back then before this happened to you?
I think I believed in God. I believed in heaven. That was about it. It's like believing in the Secretary of the Treasury. I mean, they exist. They just don't necessarily correspond with your day to day, right? So, I was raised Catholic, 13 years of Catholic education. The last one didn't work out well. They suggested I find a different university to attend, and I did. And so I had a bit of a spiritual bent, but it wasn't something that took my focus. I'm kind of a driven guy, business and being a father and in hockey, in which I hung up my skates a few years ago, which is good. I'm 65. So it just never fit into my daily routine. I didn't doubt it. I just didn't need to believe in it yet, but that all changed.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. So after connecting with, with Christopher and getting all the information that you get, where do you think Christopher is now?
Well, I got to tell you, Christopher's told me this. And here's the thing. I saw Thomas John on a small group meeting on a Zoom last night, right? Sitting on the Lanai. I'm down in Florida, in Lanai, and had a wonderful, this is my sister's house, and she came through. So I still tap into mediums. I have a 3 a.m. session with Chris at least a couple days a month where he comes through, and it's literally dictation. It's not Q&A. He's telling me, and I'm reporting it to you. And he says things like, Tom, you've got to get this out there, Dad, because of who you are, they'll listen to you. And I think a lot of it means men maybe who don't have almost the ability to grieve and allow to drop the rock, right? So it's kind of like breaking through to those guys. So, he still comes through to me. We still connect. I know where he's at. He said to me, Dad, your side is like, it's good. I said, it's good, but it's hard work. It's kind of like football camp. He said, you sweat, you're physically exhausted, you're banged up, but you're with your friends and you're happy and it's fulfilling. He said, that's your side. My side is a beach bungalow in Maui. So from what I've gathered, and I've done a lot of gathering, Tom, over the last 6 years, is that the other side, the heaven that we call it, or whatever you wanted to call it, is of our own making, what brings us joy. I know that his is tropical, and I think I'll share that with him when I join him.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that anytime that we have, that when we go to the other side now, I myself, I have a connection, doing mediumship myself. And the thing with me is that I've always run from it. So I try not to connect from it simply because I don't truly understand it, or I would prefer to have other people connect instead of me connect. But I can tell you that the times that I have connected with people, it's exactly what you said, that the other side is what you make of it, what you think it is. And the same with the experience of crossing over. If you go in fear, it's going to be a difficult crossing. And the other thing I've also discovered from, people talking to me from the other side is that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this comes to me, that when we do cross over to the other side, it's like we go into a hospital on the other side to recover from whatever tragedy or illness that we passed from. And until we're fully recovered, then we can continue on with the other side.
That's so amazing, Tony, because I got to tell you, this isn't in either book yet, because this happened after. My beloved sister, who was Christopher's godmother, died of cancer. She suffered 5 years, lived the life the way she wanted to live, tried to, did treatment, did everything, and finally said, I'm done. I'm done. And she was a real source of love to me, Tony, even when I wasn't lovable, and I was kind of a wild kid. I'm 36 years sober, and she was just a big part of my life. And before she transitioned, I was with her literally the week before, 3 or 4 days before she transitioned. I wanted to be there when she did, but it was okay. Her kids were here and her grandkids were here. But she said to me, honey, Joey, she called me Joey. She said, you gave me the greatest gift. I read your book and I'm not afraid to die. Now, Christopher had told me, and he adored Marcia, they loved each other. And he had said, Pop, when she crosses, I'll be there, but so will Jerry, Billy, the whole family. He said, I promise she won't be alone. And after she transitioned, he came through to me and said, Dad, I promised you I'd greet her, and Jerry, Billy, Bobby, name all the siblings on the other side, and my niece, Carrie. He said, we were all there. But then she had to go somewhere, like a spa. And when she came back, she was younger than when I even remember her as a kid. Now, I hadn't thought of this. That's why these things aren't of your making, because it's over my head. I didn't think of that. And what happened was, even though the cancer stayed with her body on this side, the trauma crossed over. So she had to go somewhere. What a loving way to put it. What woman doesn't want to go to a spa, right?
Right.
and
Yeah.
to purge or cleanse her soul, not of sin, but of this trauma. And then she rejoined the group. And I also believe from no, let's knock it down from believe to no, that when we see them, they're in what we consider their prime. Christopher tells me he'll always be 21. Marcia, who transitioned in her 70s, looked somewhere in her 40s. And I think, to be honest with you, when I go, I'm very happy with the guy I've become, Tone. So I think this is the age that I'll come through to the people that I love on this side, with looking the way kind of I do, gray hair, bent nose and all.
Right. Yeah. Again, I think it's when we go to the other side, it's what makes us happy that is the person that we become in the life that we live. For me personally, I'd have a hard time because on one hand, I'd love to be younger and stay in that younger, but at the same time, mentally and in all other ways, I want to be this age because I wish I knew then what I know now,
Yeah.
and I wish I would have started this journey of metaphysics, spirituality, and looking for answers from the beginning. And actually, I did begin the journey a long time ago, but like I said, I just never paid attention to it. And then all of a sudden, I see all these books coming out and all these mediums, James Von Prague and all
Love
these
Von
people,
Prague.
all of them. And I think to myself, darn it, I missed the chance. I know all this already and I didn't write it down and stuff. But then I just think that things happen for a reason
When they're supposed to.
when they're supposed to.
You know what?
Agreed.
I was just writing this morning, and I was quoting Mark Twain, who said that good judgment's the result of experience,
Mhm.
which is generally the result of bad judgment. So
Yeah.
we learn from our mistakes, we change, and I like me better at 65 than I did at 45.
Yeah.
I think it's that whole Jungian, scholar, athlete, statesman,
Right.
mentality, and I don't mind being an old man. I'm kind of grateful I get to be one. The Vegas odds weren't always in me making 65, believe me.
Right. Yeah. I just, that's, I think you and I come from the same world because I was reading up on you. And are you still in mortgage world?
I am. I was a car dealer for many years, and I'm a mortgage broker. I absolutely love it. My daughter joined me in the business this year. Um, I'm blessed with a wonderful book of business and my own schedule, which is, I'm pretty driven. So I love to work. I'll work until, I make that step across and join Chris, because that's just the way life's going to be. I love to work,
Yeah.
and are you in mortgages? Is that what you do?
I am actually, well, I was. I was working as a mortgage underwriter for the longest time.
My
And,
goodness.
and yeah, and so
Let me
I,
send you
and
a couple scenarios to look at for me, buddy.
yeah. So I was working in that world, and I have to tell you that I worked for corporate America. I'm not a fan of corporate America. I never have been. And I'm just going to say that I've never been a fan of corporate America. So, but I played the game and I, paid my dues and got some experience under my belt. And then an opportunity came for me working for a small mom and pop shop, and I worked for them 10
Nice.
plus years. And when that came to an end, I decided to do this full time.
Nice.
And now I'm trying to get into being a writer and writing things. And I do this show, but I also have another show on my website, called Heart and Soul. And that's just me telling my thoughts from everything
Nice.
I've learned and from the guests and whatnot. And one of the things you said was exactly one of my talks, which is uh, when you think of your mistakes, don't think of them as mistakes. Think of them as teachers, because it's the same thing.
Right.
We all learn from our mistakes.
Right.
So,
I wouldn't change a thing, Tone. You know what I would? The only thing I would have changed is I had no idea when it was my dad's time. And he's, hardworking, wonderful man.
yeah,
When it was just, I didn't realize he was going to leave me as soon as he did, or I would have spent more time. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I regret none of them, because they've all added up to this. And parents who've lost kids, and I've done it too. We recount every argument, every bad decision. If you read the book, you laugh about, we sent him to a military school, which it's a pretty funny situation. We got him out and brought him home, and but the mistakes kind of haunt us, and we just gotta let go, because they're great now. Whoever we're grieving, grieve you and me, man, because they're great. The term blissful comes up all the time, so I talk to parents all the time, Tony. I just got a wonderful email from a woman whose fiance just can't get going after losing his boy, and he's a guy's guy, and we're going to connect and talk, and that's part of the giving it away to keep it stuff, that,
Right.
I live my life two ways that I want to please my God, which was never my intention before, and make my son proud. And if those two tenets, if I follow those, I can't go wrong, right? And
Right.
and I always say to people, don't feel sorry for me. None of this is about wanting anybody to feel sorry. I said, I got the greatest job in the world for 21 years. I got to be Christopher's father on this side. And when my time comes to cross, he's going to greet me. I'll be with him and the rest of my family on another go round, right? So,
Right.
if God can't, I lived a life beyond my wildest dreams, Tom. And I got my wife of 30 years. We've woman of my dreams. I love my kids, one on the other side who I just adore. I've had a couple of nice careers and done better than I was ever entitled to or should have. And the bottom line, God taps me on the shoulder and says, pal, time to go. I'm good, because I know what's coming, and it ain't bad.
Right. So I know the title of the book that we're talking about, at least the We're Not Done Yet Pop, came from Christopher.
Yeah.
What do you think he meant by that, and what made you decide to put that in the title of the book?
That's a brilliant question. Thank you for that. So I was finishing the first book, which is my search for Christopher on the other side. And I never intended to write a book. I was documenting all these medium visits and taking notes. I expected to be sitting on a porch sometime with a cigar, rocking in a rocking chair, reviewing these to say, close my boy. I didn't know, but as the Greeks would say, man plans and God's laugh, And so as I was finishing the first book, every keystroke, every paragraph, Chris was with me on this book. And as I was finishing the first book, I was feeling melancholy, which is a good Irish term, isn't it? Melancholy. Because I thought, wow, will this connection end with this project, right? And he knew that, he sensed that. He said, we're not done yet, Pop. You're going to be doing this, excuse me. You'll be doing this until you cross, we'll be doing this together until you cross. And all of a sudden it was like a weight was lifted, that I know that, along with writing a whole bunch of mortgages, the rest of my life is going to be of service to parents who've lost kids or people who've lost significant others, and honoring my son and getting his words out there. They're not mine, they're his. And they're from the other side, which makes me kind of sacred, So,
Absolutely.
That's what the reasoning of the story was, is that, and this is, I'm writing book 3 right now. I was working on it this morning, and it's just a part of my life. It's like breathing now,
Right.
and doing interviews and talking to groups. I'm honored to be able to be on with you and have you share this with your people, and maybe somebody's going to know that. Susan Geisman, who's brilliant. I love
Yes.
Susan Geisman, medium author,
Mm-hmm.
straight up and down like 6 o'clock. She was commander in the Navy. You know what I mean? She's
Yes.
an amazing woman.
I'm
Just,
familiar.
and I adore her. And she read Chris for me one time. Just, she said, I'm going to call you tomorrow and we're going to do a read. And Chris came through, and because everybody does what Susan Geisman tells them to do, including spirit, right?
Yeah.
So, her one title of her book is that, still right here, and that's the message. If you said to me, Joe, give me a message for my audience, it's like, still right here. Whoever's lost is still right here. They're accessible, but you got to do your part, right? You got to do things to raise your energy. I never meditated before Christopher transition. I didn't know what meditation really was. I'm kind of a A-type personality, so, but my times, meditating is a big part of my life, and it helps me connect with him. All of it, the candles, the sage, the crystals, all of it, becomes part of a ceremony that raises my level of consciousness, raises my energy. Then he lowers his, and we meet in the middle, and we connect. And
That's wonderful.
It's magnificent,
Yeah, and it gives you, just like you, and being that we both come from the same world, the before life, so to speak, for me, anyways.
Yeah.
Meditating really, I mean, I was the worst. I did my best to try to meditate, and I'd fall asleep.
Yeah.
Every time. And every time I try to meditate, I fall asleep. I was so disappointed with myself, but I couldn't help it. That's what I knew about meditation. And then, so, I kept listening to, guidance from other people. Oh, just clear your mind. And I said, yeah, sure, I can do that, in a heartbeat. Sure, why not? But it finally took me 3 years
Yeah.
to finally meditate. But I have to tell you that it does help connect. But the reason being is because I think we find that inner peace. And I have to tell you that no matter what comes into my life, knock on wood, I'm able to remain calm.
Yeah.
I have a inner peace that I just can't explain. And that
You can feel it. I can feel your peaceful energy right now. I mean, to be honest with you, calm me down. It's a gift that you have, that I can feel that,
Thank you.
that is a gift.
Yeah. And it's wonderful. I mean, I'm glad, and you're right, that gift that I have, I can share, and what you and I are doing right now is we're sharing our passion and our purpose with
Our
people.
experience, strength, and hope is what we're sharing.
Absolutely, and I really think that also gives us an inner peace
I do too.
that we've never met before.
I know I'm on a path that I'm supposed to do. I know what I'm doing. When this was first starting, I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
He was taking me out to the metaphysical woodshed a few times and saying, "Pop, you got to do this. This is what you're supposed to do." And the bottom line is there's nothing I can recall that I wouldn't do for my son. So if he wanted me on this path because he knows it's best for me, and maybe help a few people out there, then I'm on it. And that's what I'm going to do until it's my time.
That's right. So, like you were telling me before, this is your second book. Your
Yeah,
first book was My Search for Christopher on the Other Side.
correct.
What's the difference between the first book and the second book?
Um, the first book was really kind of a how-to for dummies, right? A boots on the ground, blue collar guide, and my story of trying to find my way to this metaphysical door that was open for me. The second is, I've been doing this 6 years, right? Christopher transitioned January 3rd, 2016, 6 years. And I'm about ankle deep, of knowledge. There's so much more. But there were many, your Van Prague mentioned it, and John Holland talk about thin places. And so that was a big part of the second book, and finding the thin places and explaining to people what thin places are, helping them connect through thin places. Past life regression. There's so much more. The third book, I've just kind of scraped the surface of past life regression. It's something I'm really trying to I work on for the third book. So I think the first book was the story, and the second book, I think, is healing lessons for people who've lost kids. And the bottom line is that we continue to grow and learn and know. I think it's like any great, and I will tell you this in all humility, they're two of the best books out there in the metaphysical, because every word is true, not embellished, not, somebody was doing a screenplay and said something about, well, we might embellish this. I said, I will burn down the studio before I let anybody embellish it. I said, I talked to my son who's on the other side. How much more embellishment, what kind of embellishment do you need to that subject, So everything is true. So I really believe that if somebody here in your audience has lost somebody, go to Amazon, get the first book, and then the second one. They're both on Kindle and paperback. They just came out with the second book, just came out in Audible, and a guy named Doug Green wrote it, and read it, and I'm so pleased the way he reads it, because it feels like me talking, and I'm so grateful for that. That I think it's going to bring some peace and maybe some answers. And I'm sure, he keeps telling me, Chris, in the second book, you're not an expert, and I'm far from it, but I'm following the breadcrumbs, and I'm kind of reporting back on the progress and telling you what I've learned, and what maybe might bring a little peace to some of your heartbreaking souls that are out there. Because, anybody who said time heals all wounds, Tony, never lost a kid, right? It'll never go away. My heart, there's a movie called Manchester by the Sea, and the woman quoted perfectly. She lost kids in a fire. And she said, my heart was broken. It'll always be broken. Now, that doesn't mean I can't be a good father, husband, provider, but I do that all with a little piece of my heart broken, and my eyes, half the time on the other side. And it's fine. It works perfectly for me. I live a fulfilled, happy life. I just miss my son in the flesh. That's all.
Right. And that brings me to a question that I was going to ask you that actually, I don't know why I didn't ask it, but I'm going to ask now. Mm-hmm. So I know that you got help writing this book from your son, Christopher. So it is a representation of your son. It is your son. It is precious. It is so important to you. So how do you deal with people on this side trying to help you put the book out, and, editors and voiceovers and whatever? Is it that difficult for you to let go or allow them to help you?
The first book was challenging. Christopher sent me to Lisa Hagen as an agent, and my name just kept going back to her, or my eyes kept going back to her on, I met with a bunch of authors and said, how do you get this stuff published? And I met with her, and then, so she said, I'll represent you. And then we sent it out to some houses, and I kept getting letters, which were shocking to me. Why wouldn't anybody want to print this? And she said, I have my own publishing company, and my partner and I are going to print this. And so when it came to second, it was easy. She was amazing, and she understands Chris. I was emailing her today. I forwarded her a note that somebody sent me that was very heartfelt, and I said, we're doing our job, you and I. And then this time, there was another Lisa who became my editor, and I just adored the way she worked. The first book, the editor was okay, but we weren't in sync. So I'd push back and pretty much just take back the whole thing. And the second book, it was almost like a collaboration with this wonderful woman, single mom, bright, healthy, wonderful. And we did a magnificent job. And so she's already on board for the third book. When there's things I need editing for whatever, I send it to her. And I have a golf outing every year in Christopher's honor. And she actually drove in from Cleveland to go to the outing, which is really overwhelming. And I was very grateful.
Yeah. Did you ever have doubts about, the information you were getting from the mediums about Christopher? I mean, for a split second, yes, did you ever think, oh, this is crazy? Why am I even going down this road?
Of course I had doubts, when he first came through, it was that first year anniversary. And I was meditating, doing all the things and listening to a guided meditation. And all of a sudden he started coming through and started talking about what heaven was like. You're not going to believe the colors and the air, and it's warm and it's love. It's like love air. And I'm like, and I just happened to have a legal pad in front of me, and I just started writing it down. And I'm like, holy cow, did I just leave the reservation here? What the heck is all this about? So I actually, after a number of those, I took it to a friend of mine who's a medium, Andrew Anderson. I'm going to tell you a great story about Andrew. And he said, oh no, that's him. Thomas John talked about an episode that I had. He said, well, on that day, Christopher actually walked through you, And so I got these wonderful affirmations from these pros, right? I'm a rookie, and these guys are pros, and they're saying no doubt. So the first, I believed it. I believed in the afterlife. I talked to the woman that I talked to 16 years ago, told me things right after Chris drowned that I didn't know until I got back the police report, right? And so it was very validating, but I wanted to see a medium in person. So I looked up, it was actually Bob Olson, who wrote a wonderful book. And there was a website that ranked mediums in your area. And so I looked up this guy, Andrew Anderson. And he's about 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from me. I said, all right, I'll make an appointment. So that day I did two things. The day I was going to go see him. One is I had ordered shamrock seeds and they had arrived. And another thing is on my bracelet right here is a leather bracelet that Christopher got for me when we were in Disney World when he was 1999. And it was in my drawer for 16 years, and I put it on my wrist. Now I had moved them from one grave over to another, and that's in the first book, so you'll like the story. When the snow, we had buried them, and they don't put the stone into the snow, the ground gets soft. So this is, we buried them January 8th, in winter in Illinois. So when the snow melted, even though I had bought 3 plots for me and my buddy Michael bought 3 for his family, they buried him next to another couple. So it looked like he was their kid. And I was not going to have any of that. So after a tug of war and writing a check, we moved him over one. And I'm going to occupy that spot, right? And so here it is, June 30th of 2016. And the ground around his grave was loose, the dirt, because they had interred him just a couple of weeks before. So I was planting these shamrocks. And then I went and saw Andrew. I walked in to see Andrew in his office, and he said, your son's here. He explained some things about his personality. He said, your family celebrated something last night on the other side. What was it? It was Sally and my wedding anniversary, 25 years at the time. And I was like, wow, okay. He said, Christopher acknowledges that you're wearing the bracelet he gave you, and he acknowledges that you planted something in his grave. That's the moment, Tony. I went from believing to knowing. And at that point, I never looked back. 6 months in, I never looked back.
That's amazing.
And that?
Yeah, it is. What would you tell parents? What's your advice to parents or your heartfelt feelings that you would tell parents that have lost a child?
That they're not gone. They're there. You got to do your part. I don't look like a guy that would quote Haruki Murakami, but he said, and once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what storms are all about. So our parents, we've walked through this storm, right?
Right.
And you got to change. And my whole priority changed. My number one job in my life was always taking care of my kids. So I'm keeping that same responsibility for the one that's on the other side. And how I take care of him is get his message out. So all I got to say is do whatever you got to do to learn the lessons, learn from guys like me who walked a few paces ahead of you, figure out how to connect, check out mediums, do it online, look, get referrals, join a place called like Helping Parents Heal. I've presented there. Do what you got to do to connect and then buckle up because your kids aren't gone. It's nowhere near, by the way. It stinks. It's a bad trait. I would much rather be abysmally ignorant of all things metaphysical and be able to go play golf with my kid this afternoon, my son, right? But you can't unring that bell. So what are you going to do? So it's the only game in town. And it's so much better than thinking that he's gone. I know he's with me right now. I feel him with a chill around my neck when he's around. So you kind of brought him forward right now. Thank you for that.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I do feel that presence.
Yeah.
So life in general, what would you say that we should be doing in life? I mean, how should we be living life, in general? What are your thoughts on that?
Henry James once said that 3 things are important. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. We're all going to have a life review. Do you want to review something of you being harsh or selfish? Or do you want to review where you pulled over and helped somebody on the side of the road who was in distress? Or gave a couple of bucks to somebody on the side because they need it? So my advice is, take this heartbreak that you've got, that we've all had, right? And find a way to make this world better because of it in little ways, I really believe that the quote that said that goodbyes are for those who love with their eyes, for those who love with their heart and soul. There's no such thing as separation.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And that was from a 16th century poet, Rumi. So this new age, it's only new to you and me, Tony.
All right. That's funny that you say that because in the connections that I've had with people from the other side, they always seem to bring up not big events that people did to help them in their lives. They always want to acknowledge someone just saying hi to them, or treating them with kindness, or treating them with respect when they most needed it. So it's always the small little things that make a big impact in someone's life, and you never know.
You never know.
So I agree with you. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
be kind to everyone. Um, do you think well, I think you answered this question already. Do you think you found your calling?
Yeah, you know what? It is my calling. It's something to do. I'll do until I cross. And for me, I wouldn't know how to manage my day if there wasn't some sort of task that involved the metaphysical, whether it's talking to you, writing the book, dealing with parents and helping parents heal Zoom line, whatever it is, making a call to somebody who lost a kid, that's, I feel more fulfilled when I'm doing that and more in spirit, than I ever did doing anything else. It's a whole lot better than hitting a home run, Tone, I promise.
Right. Well, wonderful. If you were granted three wishes, what would you wish for?
Oh, goodness gracious. What a great question. One is, I would wish for Christopher's words to be out there globally, kind of like a Bagger Vance, when that book was discovered,
Yes.
because I think it brings healing and health. I would wish for that when I transition, that my legacy, carrying Christopher's words, will heal other people, and that I could just continue to do more good in this world, for the sake of pleasing my God and making my son proud.
Beautiful. And for the final wish?
Give it to somebody who needs it, Tony. I got everything I need.
Wonderful. Good answer. Well, Joe, I want to really thank you for taking the time to talk to me and to talk to my viewers and listeners. I know that your story and your son's story will touch someone's heart and will help heal hearts and provide answers. So thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Thank you, Tony.